well, we all depend on forests, and they're the livelihoods and the life support systems of the planet, and they're under great threat. Biodiversity is being lost as the forests are being lost. So stopping deforestation is preeminent concern for us. It's a major source of emissions. Probably 15% of global emissions come from forest clearing, another 15% in agriculture. So the impacts of agriculture, probably about 30% of global emissions. So it's definitely part of the problem, and we aim to be the solution.
And in terms of deforestation, which you talked about, what kind of progress have we seen in slowing that over the past few years? Brazil would say that they have made great strides in slowing that, but I'm sure there are other issues around the world which you might be able to highlight for us.
Deforestation continues, but the rates are slowing in countries like you just mentioned, Brazil. It's great news, probably some of the most important news to come out of the COP. I think the progress that RED has made within the negotiations over the years has been very important, and certainly we aim to see that progress continues at this particular COP. The activities that are happening on the ground that are slowing deforestation run a whole range from commitments by leading businesses and leading companies to support deforestation-free products, looking for products that come from climate-friendly sources, climate-smart agricultural sources that curb deforestation or avert deforestation. So, the Rainforest Alliance is really working to help drive a transformational change in the way businesses source food and beverage crops from areas that are under threat of deforestation. Not just coffee, tea, cocoa, or bananas, but also commodity crops like soy, pulp and paper, cattle, and things of that nature that all have a pretty large forest footprint and a pretty large carbon footprint.
Do businesses do that willingly? I know recently KFC have been in the news for, I think, the paper they put their huge and probably rather bad buckets of chicken legs and chips in. Do companies do that willingly, or do they have to be exposed? Do they have to be pushed and does it have to campaigns against them have to be run to ensure that they respect the rainforest?
It's been a big change. Probably a decade ago, you needed a campaign. You needed an inflatable gorilla or an inflatable chainsaw outside of your corporate offices. But today, we really see companies that are making these transitions, making these commitments of their own accord, and that's really important. We see major brands making commitment to Rainforest Alliance certified coffee, tea, cocoa. And that's leading to climate-friendly agricultural practices in areas where deforestation is a problem.
I mean, what's in it for a company if they want to work with the Rainforest Alliance? If I'm if I'm a director, what am I going to get out of that partnership?
Well, there's a number of different things, from the level of the outward-facing representation of your product in the store and to the consumer. You're providing a trust mark. There's an assurance that it comes with recognition that's growing increasingly around the Rainforest Alliance certification seal and our iconic frog. That on a product is good for your brand and it's good for your messaging because you're seen to be associated by an organization and with an organization that has a lot of social energy around it as a leader in this space. At the level of the producer, by driving down a supply chain sustainability standards, those producers, the farmers who are growing these crops, they're the ones that are going to benefit from practices that increase productivity, that increase the economic viability of the farm, practices that improve the management of waste or the management of chemicals, that increase the health benefits to workers and families that are on farms. So there's a win-win that we see in the supply chain, from the consumer being able to purchase an eco-friendly product and the producers able to improve practices, save money, be more efficient at it, and have a more productive farm.
And talk to me a bit about rainforests in terms of, I guess, I'm looking at sort of tipping points. How much more rainforest can we afford to chop down and plant soya or palm oil or other sort of crops before it's too late, before we get to that point where we lose this vital carbon sink and all of the I guess benefits, ecosystem services that they provide?
Well, idealistically or scientifically, I would say none. We can't afford to lose any more. Realistically, weighing the development ambitions and needs of countries in transition and the global growth of a population that's consuming more and more all the time, I realize that we will see more. The changes that we're witnessing both within the commitments that come through the COP as well as commitments that are coming from private sector are looking at 2020 as a date to see no more products from deforestation or net zero deforestation zones and enticing businesses as well as governments to try to push both policies and financing to source products from areas that are deforestation free and to create those areas, basically green economic zones. So that transformation of economies is necessary to both curb deforestation, slow it, and then to restore landscapes that have been degraded or deforested. And there's a lot that we can do in terms of restoring landscapes.
And I guess on a final point, REDD+ is being discussed here in Doha. There's been, I guess, a lot of unrest amongst some groups. They feel it's obscene almost that we are valuing, putting a price on a tree or on a forest. How do you get around that issue? How do you explain to, I don't know, indigenous groups who perhaps aren't necessarily that connected to these talks that, you know, you're not just out to make a quick buck?
Well, I don't think that the Rainforest Alliance has ever seen it as simply an equation of money for carbon, trees, carbon. We've always recognized that by sustainable management of a forest, you're going to improve its ecosystem function, you're going to improve the wildlife habitat, you're going to maintain biodiversity, you're going to maintain non-timber forest products that people want to have access to. We've always come at it from the position of you need to make a forest economically viable for it to really sustain itself. Otherwise, other competing interests probably will put those pressures and those threats will not be abated. But the way you go about that economic valuation, making a forest productive, can be done in a manner that's very consistent with traditions and practices of different peoples and cultures. So lower impact harvesting, more sustainable harvesting, harvesting of more than just timber, but harvesting of non-timber forest products, but doing it in such a way that maintains the forest and maintains the integrity of the ecosystem and the biological and ecological functions there that are important to sustain the livelihood functions that the people are interested in. We've always seen, let's try to encourage and create value around the wider basket of ecosystem services, timber, non-timber, water, biodiversity, and now carbon. So carbon payments can be additional, but they're not going to be the only thing that's going to carry the day in saving forests.